I have a lot to go over. Unfortunately, I have one of those minds that works and works and works. And so a lot of times at 3 o'clock in the morning, be up researching something that God put in my head. I'm Catholic, and my religion and my belief is very important to me, as well as my 2 children. I always tell a little bit about myself so that people know who I am. I could be anyone in your neighborhood. I could be behind you in the grocery store. But my story is a little different. I married somebody who was the son of a judge in the city of Alexandria. They believe they are very powerful, and they are, within the judiciary. My ex-husband's stepmother is a divorce lawyer. My ex-husband's father was a judge. I've seen the horse trading of the cases. It never dawned on me the harm it did to people until we were getting divorced and I became a victim of the system. I'd become a victim of it beforehand, but I didn't really see it. And when I say that showing you this is my evidence for my divorce. I was divorced. My divorce was finally in 2000, and I was given $345 a month in child support, basically, while at the same time they were collecting $85,000 a month in our rents. They told me if I did anything, they would put my children in foster care because I was raising them Catholic and they were Jewish. Who would think that would be an issue today? I had no clue. I waited until my children were old enough to go back for my property settlement. You won't ever find a person in Virginia divorced without a property settlement. I'm one of them. When I put the evidence into the record, it was mailed back to me by the judges, and I was told they would not keep the evidence. But I didn't stop there. And so I wound up going to jail. I had a couple blogs going. They did a blog on me saying I was the Antichrist, ruined me. Over 1,000 pages of horrid things said. Finally, they jailed me for $8,100 in legal fees. That they stated, my ex-husband, my ex-mother-in-law, I can prove everything was a lie. Everything, they created this false narrative about me. The judges said to my face, "You will never win. We are in love with Alona." I still believed in our system. I was so naive, stupid. So in October of 2014, on the 22nd, I was called into court at 9 o'clock a week before that, and I was asked if I had paid the $8,100 in legal fees. You are not supposed to be able to go to jail on legal fees. That violates not only all my constitutional rights, it puts me as a slave of the state. So basically, I didn't even get to open my mouth, and they said, "Take her, 30 days. What they were doing was they were jailing me to silence me so Senator Mark Warner could win. My blog at that point was had over 100,000 views. He had traded a federal judgeship to turn the Virginia Judiciary. The Washington Post had recorded it. I put it up on Facebook and got kicked off. I put it on all the different social medias that were available at that time. And then I was jailed for it. And how I know I was jailed for that, not really the $8,100, is because at 5 o'clock, after being in solitary confinement for 14 days, they came to me, the sheriffs. "You no longer need to be in solitary. We found the 17,000 votes we needed for Mark Warner to win." Now, one sheriff helped me sneak out documents, and I was out in 22 days. It scared them because I refused to eat the 22 days I was in there. They'd already hired people to kill me. I've been in the hospital for being poisoned. We have a problem with our judiciary. Our two-tiered system is so illegal, and we can't have anything work if we allow this to continue. So I carry this rosary and this comb to remind me what freedom is and how quickly you can lose it with the right person in Virginia not liking you. Carrie Lake in Arizona lost her Senate race, 17,000 votes. And you can look up Mark Warner and Ed Gillespie, 17,000 votes. The Democrats have a plan, and they reuse it in every state. I have a blog called amlegalnews.blogspot.com. And on that blog, I did an article how Donald Trump could have won if he hadn't bothered with our courts, but gone to our fourth arm of government. We have 3 arms of government: our legislature, our executive branch, our judiciary, and the fourth arm of government is our grand jury. We, the people, own all of them, but we especially own the grand jury. And in the 6 days, they realized the power of the grand jury. And all of our laws, the legislature and the executive branches and everybody decided we weren't going to have access to it. West Virginia does have in its constitution, you have a right to go into it. In Virginia, the law that's preventing us to go into it is one that is ambiguous and just states the Commonwealth Attorney does the presentations. Our Commonwealth attorneys throughout the state, and it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, are corrupt. And they are all protecting each other. I have been trying for 2 years to get in front of one in Orange, Virginia. I've let it go a little lax lately, but our 10th Amendment says we get to redress the federal government. We do get to have investigations. We get to take our government back, and we can do it. Our forefathers were very smart. They saw the power these 3 branches had. They knew what it meant. And so they gave us this 4th branch that you don't even learn anything about. Lawyers don't learn about it. They don't have an understanding of what it has and the power it has. And it belongs to us. And the federal government has stated we're not allowed into the federal grand juries. All of these people have forgotten they are our employees. When you go to the DMV, when you go anywhere into an office building that's run by the government or anybody who gets a government salary, they are your employee. And instead of us reminding them of that, we ask them favors. We have the authority, and the authority was given to us by our forefathers. If you look at what the state of Virginia's chart is, we the people are above it. In fact, I had this done. What's in your toolbox to save America? What's in your toolbox is us. It's, God, family, and country. They're under here, and the fourth arm of government is here. It may not be huge, but we own all of this. This belongs to us. They don't have any authority over us except for what we give them. And we have to start having the backbone and not be afraid. Fear is the worst thing that we have that holds us back. And that's the great thing about this new movement, is we have each other. One phone call to Dana is going to alert all of us. All of us have different specialties. I've become a certified ADA advocate. Nobody is immune from the ADA. Federal judges, if you Google it, says, oh, the federal courts are immune from it. No, they aren't. They've been able to manipulate the internet to only allow us to see the laws and the different things they want us to see. And they're going to continue to be able to do that as long as we let them. So how do we make the change? I created a website called judicialpedia.com. Judicialpedia.com had over 2 million views last year. Don't have very many sites cases up there, but I had enough that our Supreme Court Justice in Virginia had to step down. Donald Lemons had to step down in December of 2021. Our Supreme Court Justice before that was Cynthia Kinzer. Cynthia Kinzer had to step down. Cynthia Kinzer let Michael Gardner out of jail. Michael Gardner molested several young girls in Falls Church, Virginia. Those young girls are so strong. They've gone on to actually start a website and to help others who have been harmed. Our appeals court said, no, you don't get out. Our Supreme Court said, yeah, we'll give you another bite of the apple, and we'll let you out of jail while we do it. We'll just go ahead and torture these young girls and make them come back to court. He hired a hitman to kill those girls. So she quietly stepped down. Few people know why she stepped down. We have 2 oversights of our lawyers and our judges. It's the Virginia State Bar and the JIRC, the Judicial Inquiry Committee. Both of them are run by the Supreme Court. Both of them are government agencies. You write them a letter, you file a complaint, the very next day you'll get a letter back. Sorry, we can't really change the outcome of your case. Basically, F off. Excuse my language. We have a problem. And it's not a little problem. And, Governor Youngkin's aware of it. What do? I want a state police investigation. Every state police office that I go to, the governor has to approve it. They've got it in their system. The governor has to approve it if we're going to investigate anything you say, because of the false narrative they have against me. So basically, what I am doing is I've created a form, and I could use some help. Everybody who has been treated unfairly in the courts, whether it's as small as a parking ticket, we need to get the case up on Judicialpedia. Doesn't matter if it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because all of this started back then. And when you go to court and you walk out of the courtroom and you think, oh, how did that happen? I had all this evidence, just like my notebook in that box, all that evidence. And they just ignored it. And they used a false narrative. And they twisted and turned everything you said and ignored all the evidence and agreed with the other side. It could be in a divorce. It could be in a guardianship. It could be a parking ticket. It could be a criminal case. And it was all made up. And all of a sudden, you've lost everything. And I always call it the $10,000 couch in a divorce. People don't understand. They go to these lawyers thinking they're going to get help because the two of you are having a difficult time talking. It's the worst thing you can do, because when you go to them, you give them every little bit of your financial information. They're all friends. They all party together. They take the judge to dinner. They send the judge on weekend vacations. The Inn at Little Washington, you will never walk into the Inn at Little Washington and not find a judge there that day. I truly believe that. It's one of their favorite places to treat them to dinner. I think it's now $1,200 a person or something. But that's okay, because they're charging you $400 or $500. And you're not really holding them accountable for what they're really doing in that time. So basically, you mention a couch, and you say, oh, he can have it. She said, you're going to let him have that couch? Now, the couch isn't worth $250, but now you've spent $10,000 in legal fees over a stupid couch. Because when I said, you're going to let him have it? You let him have the couch, you might as well let him have your kids. And that's how it starts, the slippery slope of years of divorce, years of fighting over our kids. Our kids should not be a discussion in the courts. We own our kids. We had them. We went through all that trouble. They should not be a pawn in a divorce. And in that sense, we need grown-ups to act like adults and to sit down and have a conversation. If you see someone going through a divorce, act as a mediator. Tell them how stupid they are. Don't be afraid to. Because the only person that gets hurt is our children. If your children are in private school, they go to public school now. If you live in a nice house, you're in 2 apartments, but guess what? That lawyer, those 2 lawyers, their kids are driving a BMW. Yeah, and a private school. So we have choices, but we have to be kind to each other, and we have to care about each other, and we need to learn who our neighbors are. You know, these false narratives that we're allowing, the MAGA people, it's a false narrative. It's not who we are. Just because we believe in God, we believe in our country, we believe in certain set of morals, we don't want our children seeing certain books. All of a sudden that makes us bad people? I don't think so. I don't think so. A lot of people go to church on Sunday so they can say they went to church on Sunday. Not because they're actually good people. And we're all supposed to be better than that. So basically, the grand jury, if you remember, $40 million for a Russian hoax. Now, why that hasn't pissed off everybody, I don't understand. Because that $40 million came out of our pockets. And it went into the pockets of lawyers, friends of the Democrats, which give them more money to put into the pockets of who they want elected. Every time they start one of these schemes, it's all about the money. Just like when we go to a grand jury and we ask for a special grand jury, we're not going to be making money on that. That's going to take time, effort. It's going to take subpoenas. It's going to take people showing up. And I'm telling you, I honestly believe if we get some of these voting type issues into the courts to begin with, and they see that there's a swell of people that's going to be watching, they're going to have to rethink what they're doing. Because right now they're saying, no, we're not letting you in front of the grand jury. We're not letting you do this. We're not letting you do that. Well, I don't know that isn't simple enough that if we don't do it, the Commonwealth attorney has to do it, and we can dictate to him who goes in front with the evidence. Now, one of the things I did because of this is I became a certified ADA advocate. Nobody is immune from the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a lovely lady from Florida, her name is Karen Huffner, who fought for years to get the term legal abuse syndrome coined. And what that is if you go to court as a pro se litigant, or you're in the court, guardianship is one of those things where the judge decides you're incapacitated. He uses his attorney, he uses his lawyers, he uses his doctors. Any doctors you put in there, and I've worked on several of these cases, so I've seen how it's worked. The judges, as mad as you may be at the people who present the evidence, it's the judge who makes the decision. It's the judge who says, okay, you're my friend lawyer over here in the guardianship. I'm going to allow you $500 an hour. Now, this is a person who has a couple $1 million, who's not incapacitated, has 100% of their facility together. They may, have a moment. I'm 64, I have moments. At 85 or 95, I'm just praying I don't have any more moments than I have now. So not only is this 95-year-old woman, 85-year-old woman or man, trying to get a lawyer to represent him. The lawyer over here the judge has put in charge of him is making $500 an hour. Now, you've got a family member who maybe is going after him to release him or is now blocking the children from being able to see the person. And so he hires a lawyer. So now the woman with her $1 million is paying this lawyer $500 an hour, paying his lawyer $500 or $600 an hour, and paying all the other court fees. Along with, they've now sold the person's house, he's gone into a nursing home. And all of their belongings has not even gone to their kids. The person who was in charge here decided how they would go. That person can't get up in the morning and decide what they want to wear. That person only gets to wear what that guardian wants them to wear. This is such a racket, and it's been going on since 1920. And that is how our FBI got created. Our government went after a tribe in Oklahoma, and the case is on Judicialpedia, because they sat on top of oil. And our government still controls that tribe and all the money. And our government, their lawyers who are outside the government are the ones that are making the fees off of it. And those people, those indigenous people, have still not figured a way out. It's no different than what happened to Britney Spears. You may think Britney Spears acts a little crazy every now and then. We don't know how much she's acting. We don't know how much is real. But the one thing about it is she has a right at her age to spend her money any way she pleases. It's not up to her father. And that's just a constitutional right. And then we've got foreclosure cases up there. And this is something that's close to me because of what's happened to me. My home did go into foreclosure. I'm still in it and fighting it. What I have learned is all the documents against our houses are forged. It's called robo-signing. Well, let me tell you a little bit about that robo-signing. In February of 2022, our Senate Banking Commission sent a letter to Jamie Dimon. Robo-signing's illegal. So that means all the documents that are filed against our homes that government has created and allowed and our judges support, robo-signing. So you have a cloud on your title. And you will have a cloud on your title when you sell your home. And if they come back to you after you, whoever buys it, because of that cloud, most likely your title insurance isn't going to cover it. Because it was knowledgeable. We all knew it. Not only that, if your loan was created at a time in 2010 through 2012, or 2003, back to 2003, your mortgage-backed security probably it doesn't even exist. And if it did exist, there's a whole list of them who don't exist, it was created with a robo-signer. Wells Fargo Bank owned a company, CTS, or Computer Share, that all the mortgage-backed securities pretty much went back through there. It's in Maryland. As I started researching it, I realized, for instance, mine was in 2 different mortgage-backed securities. It was on Bank of America, Wells Fargo Bank, and American Home Mortgage Servicing. It's a balance sheet all at the same time. And they just were trading it around. But you don't know that because you trust our system. So you don't think to go and look at actually what's going on within our system. And in Virginia, we have laws. And one of those laws is if they take your property and put it into a mortgage-backed security, they do an assignment of the loan that goes against your property. If you tear that assignment apart, what you'll find is the bar number. Now, a lawyer doesn't have to create the assignment, but a lawyer has to review it. Ocwen, PHH, and New Res, when you look at their assignments, and it would have been a Homeward and American Home Mortgage Servicing, you look at their bar numbers, they're fake. They're made-up bar numbers. They were never reviewed by a lawyer. When you bring it up to your Commonwealth attorney, your clerk of court, which our law states, if you can show a fraudulent document against your home, they're supposed to remove it. And by removing that, you'll be able to show that your mortgage was a fraud under the UCC laws and whatnot. So a lot of people have been displaced with fraudulent documents. So this is a picture of a gentleman. His name is Michael Stewart. He goes by different names. He was hired to drug me, rape me, get sexual inappropriate pictures, rape my kids, whatever. He was also at the shootings of this congressman in Monroe Avenue, a couple blocks from my house. In my neighborhood and in my area, we've had 2 sheriffs' wives killed. One was, oops, I left her at midnight, she was fine, and committed suicide. Nancy Dunning, her head was blown off. Oops, we forgot to interview him prior to. We'll just lump him in with the judge's daughter and another guy who opened their front door and was murdered, and we'll just pin it on this guy, Charles Severance. Talk about a kangaroo court hearing. It was horrible. Every bit of evidence that he presented was twisted and turned. Nobody in the city of Alexandria believes he did those murders. Murder for hire. Remember, this is the same time we have the Democratic fundraiser for Terry McAuliffe calling on a murder for hire for these kids. We have a problem with the Democrats in Virginia. We have also here, back in 2015, a letter from the Department of Justice that says pro se litigants have no value or we shouldn't be allowing them in our courts. Yeah. One of the things with the grand jury, Justice Powell from Virginia, in the case United States versus Calendra, stated the institution of the grand jury, sorry about that. Somehow my phone updated and it's not working right. The Institute for the Grand Jury is deeply rooted in Anglo-American history. In England, the grand jury served for centuries, both as a body of accusers sworn in to discover and present for trial persons suspected of criminal wrongdoing, and as a prosecutor of citizens against arbitrary and oppressive governmental action, public corruption. In this country, the founders thought the grand jury is essential to basic liberties, that they be provided in the 5th Amendment of due process. The 5th and the 4th Amendment of our Constitution is our due process, and the federal prosecution for serious crimes. So basically, he has stated that in this case, the grand jury has historic foundation and belongs to we the people. And this was codified by Antonin Scalia, that it belongs to the people. So there is no question about it belonging to the people, but it's our government, who we own, who's blocking us from the access to it. I even have a letter from the Supreme Court of Virginia in 2010 saying I got to go in front of the grand jury to ask for a special grand jury. I was then kidnapped with my witnesses into another room, and we were not let out of there until the grand jury was dismissed. So, today's social hierarchy, it's not your color, it's not even your religion. And even though I'm sitting here telling you In my case, it was a hate crime, Catholic against Jew. It's wealth and power. People are taught from a young age, if they're born into the right family, they have certain rights over other people. There are white versus white crimes in our social hierarchy anymore. And we have to look at the laws, those that they believe they are above the law, and remind them who they are. No one puts their pants on differently any other day. We all do it the same way every morning, one leg at a time, if we're blessed with 2 legs or whatever it is. So we need to remember that, and we need to put them in their place. And how do we keep up with all of this stuff? Well, we do it through our legislature. We need to show up, and we need to speak out. This morning at 9 o'clock, before I left to come here, I was at my city council meeting. They hate me, and they should hate me. I gave them a letter last time, a demand letter for $100 million. Because in this book, they finally answered my 4 years after like 5 years. And majority of it is blacked out. Anytime any of the employees of the city answered or emailed or mentioned me in an email, the ones that aren't blacked out are and they love sending me back my emails, are blacked out like this. Redacted. That's a better word, thank you. But they didn't redact 3 of the emails. And those 3 emails, one of them was in 2015, when my entire city council asked what my mental state was. So the city attorney sent an email to the police. And the police came back and said, oh, we have our EDP, emotionally disturbed person. They didn't black that out. They thought they could intimidate me with that. And I got that, and I'm like, oh my God, do you know how illegal this is? Then there was a letter. I did sue my city. I've sued 43 federal judges. I'm about to sue about 6 more tomorrow. We have the right. In fact, actually, it's a Virginia case, Pullman versus Allen, that gives us the right to sue judges. And it's a federal Supreme Court that codified it. So we have all of these rights. It's just a matter of doing them, and it's not easy. I've been fighting this fight for a long time. Okay, now I forgot what I was talking. But so basically, I gave them a letter demanding $100 million. My demand 5 years ago was $65 million. That I sued them under RICO and racketeering, which, as a pro se litigant, if a lawyer helps you with anything, they can lose their license. And the lawyers that do help with this type of stuff all eventually lose their licenses. So we have lawyers all across the country that are good lawyers that have lost their license because they've done the right thing. And so basically I gave them the letter last week, and the case that I had against them, the RICO racketeering case, which is a really good case, and lawyers who read it after I had submitted it and I'd used their outline, told me I had nothing to worry about. Well, they sent it to one of their lawyers in D.C. and said, oh, don't worry, you got Judge Ellis. He'll take care of it right away. And then their emails back and forth. See, told you so. Our judges in the state of Virginia are chosen by the legislature. And they're chosen for friendship and money. And they horse trade every single case. As little as a parking case, they're horse traded. Yes?
Pullman versus, what was the second?
Allen. So we need people to be kind to people who are going through stuff in the courts and to listen to them. I know back in the 80s, one of my girlfriends said to me, who was going through a divorce, "You wouldn't believe this judge, Janice, blah, 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 blah." Now, here I was married to the son of a judge, and I had all these judges that were friends. And I was like, Monica was always a little crazy anyways. I had to call her and apologize. She was right, and I was wrong. I had gotten sucked up into the whole, believing that they were coming from a good place because I didn't see the side of it and the damage it did to people. That wasn't part of my crowd, as I guess you would say. The Twig, the Junior League, stuff like that. It just wasn't part of it. And those people where it did happen, they just kind of quietly went away. They went to bed. They didn't come out anymore. They didn't have the money to do lunches. They didn't have this or that. I didn't realize that was going to be me one day. And that's why I fight. I don't want what's happened to me to happen to anyone else. And I've only been able to put all of the pieces together very slowly because they do it in a way that you don't realize it's even happening to you. The judge will sit up there and he'll appear to be trying to understand your side, but he just can't get it. The truth of the matter is, he doesn't give an F about you. He's already made a deal with the side that's going to buy him dinner. And I hate to say that, I haven't found one judge in Virginia and in a lot of other states that it's any different. Because the one judge that lets us into front of a grand jury, the well's open. And we can't be denied anywhere else. Because, see, they don't believe in the law. They believe in their discretion. They believe in their authority and their right to protect themselves. In fact, last year there was a law that I don't believe it's been signed in yet, but stated, if a judge felt harassed by what you wrote on the internet, 6 months in jail. First Amendment has been forgotten about. And when you bring it up to like one of the legislatures, you know what they say? Well, after it goes, you can take it through the courts and see where you end up. What judge is going to allow you to talk the truth about them and not be held accountable? So we all have to take a really good look at what's going on right now, how we got here, and how we can change it. It's going to have to go through the courts. Everything goes through the courts anymore. And in order to do that, this false narrative about the J6ers, about Donald Trump, about any of us who have just a different belief than someone else, has got to be quashed. And we have to find a way to get our voice out there. And it's not necessarily Fox News. It has to be us going viral. And so one of my things that I recently did on October 6th, I'm not sure if any of you saw it or not. I know I was interviewed about it with Dana and Amy, and I have it up on my blog. And it's a letter. Anybody who hears of a judge or knows of a lawyer or hears of a lawyer through the press or anything like that can file a judicial complaint. Any judge, and you don't have to file it with the jerk. You don't have to file it with the bar. You can file it with a judge or another lawyer. They have an obligation by their oath that they took to report any public corruption. And instead, they're ignoring it. They're ignoring all of us. So my letter went to Justice John G. Roberts, and here is the stamp for the Supreme Court. I took it there around 5 in the morning. To Chief Justice Rowan D. Wilson of the Court of Appeals in New York, Presiding Justice, Honorable Diane T. Rerick of the First Appellate Division of New York City, and Chief Judge Adam Silva, Supreme Court of the State of New York. They have a little bit of a different judicial system than we did. I included our three governors, Governor Kathy Hochul, Governor Glenn Youngkin, and Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor Youngkin knows of my story, has been trying to ignore me and ignore the fact I want a state police investigation. So what I've done is I've created a form, and in the end, I'm going to ask you all for some help. And in that form, I wanted to know about everybody's lawsuits. I want him to know about everybody's divorce case. I want him to know about everybody's guardianship. I want him to know what he is allowing to have happen. Because he took Mr. Smith, whose daughter was raped, and I'm very sorry that happened. And Mr. Smith should never have had the trauma to go through. But he cherry-picked his case to pardon him so he could go on Fox News and say what a great guy I am. He's ignoring all the other criminal activity in our judiciary, except for the one case that helped him politically. And I hate to say that because that guy deserved it. And I don't regret that he did it, but you don't get to pick and choose. We all deserve the same justice. And if we're not getting it, he's the one, he's the chief executive of our state. Our state does not have a separation of powers as our Constitution calls for because our legislature chooses our judges. So there is no separation of powers. So he doesn't get to say that. His authority is to protect our constitutional rights, which means the fifth, the first, the fifth, the second, all of them. The 14th, the due process. And it's important because we have red flag laws. So are all of us considered EDP by the police because we've stood up and we've spoken about something they don't like? And now all of a sudden they're coming for our guns? Think about it. These people get to independently make these choices, and then you're supposed to have them take them to a court that's corrupt. So you get into like I call it the hamster wheel. You just keep going round and round and round, appealing and whatnot. So with Donald Trump's case being the perfect case right now for abuse of power, I'm just going to read a little of this. The appearance of obvious criminal acts and actions by New York Judge Arthur Ingram of the State Supreme Court in Manhattan, gives the index number, Loretta James, Donald Trump. The appearance of obvious criminal acts and actions against the United States of America people by Attorney General Merrick Garland, who has supported these acts and actions, and he is the top cop. We, the people of the United States of America, whom these people work for and are victims of the system, abuse of power for financial and personal gain against the people of the United States of America, demand Donald J. Trump et al. Gets a master and or a special master to ensure justice. A special master or master comes in and reviews what a judge is doing, what the lawyers are doing, to ensure that they are within the scope and the rules and regulations. Now, in here, I use, when you file a complaint, you have to give proof of the complaint. So I use the BBC where they talk about how Letitia James had her sights on Donald Trump through the election. I talk about the judgment. He was found guilty prior to the court even hearing his case. And I talk about the 80% of the case that's statutes of limitations had run out, that he couldn't even be tried on. 80% of the case. And then about the gag order. These things included his First Amendment right, his 5th, 14th, civil rights, 1983, provides for individuals the right to sue the state. 241 is conspiracy against rights, and 242, 18 U.S.C., the deprivation of rights under the color of the law, meaning these people have violated his civil rights just as they have all of ours. I went into 18 U.S. Code number 4, misprision of a felony, whoever having knowledge of the actual commission of a felony cognizable by a court of the United States conceals and does not as soon as possible make known the same to some judge or other person in civil or military authority under the United States shall be fined under this title and or imprisoned for not more than 3 years. Meaning all of these people involved, all these lawyers, they know the criminal activity of the judges, of the Department of the State of New York's people, and no one is doing anything. Nobody's filing any complaints. The judicial canons, judges only have like 6 rules. Uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. Avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. Perform the duties of the judicial office impartially and diligently. Respect and comply with the law. Shall not allow family, social, political, or other relationships to influence, conduct their extrajudicial activities in a way that minimizes the risk of conflict. I can see where he has violated all of them. The Declaration of Independence is the founding document of the United States, and there are 3 basic ideas behind that. God made all men equal and gave them the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The main business of government is to protect these rights, and the government tries to withhold these rights. The people are free to revolt and set up a new government, which the 4th arm of government comes into play, because that's how we are able to prove what we need to. Again, we go into the social hierarchy of this and how we're being basically violated, our constitutional rights, the oversight of judges, and those that believe they're above the law and they're the upper class. And that can be, like I said, white on white. It doesn't have to be colored against white. The judges, the government lawyers, elected official, executive branches, legislature, and judiciary, both state and federal, they don't have to like you. They don't like me. They do not have to agree with you. They do not have to be of the same religion. They do not have to be the same sex. They do not have to be the same color at all. They do not have to be in the same social hierarchy, but they have to treat us fairly. And, this is up online so that you can read it. So how can we control these people in the state of Virginia? On our legislature's website, they have a calendar. If you hit on that calendar, you'll see the meetings that exist. The most important one is on October 26th. It's our Virginia Treasury meeting. All the men in that room have $1,000 shoes on. They decide how our money's spent. They're all lawyers. They've never had anybody show up until 3 months ago when I did to say how they should be spending the money. They decide how the judges get paid, how much money the bar gets. The legislature puts it into them, but they write the check. We need to show up at those meetings. We need to tell them how we want our money spent. They, again, a group of people that I went from getting 5 minutes to 4 minutes to 3 minutes. In December and in February, they have a thing called the judicial review. Judges, it used to be every 3 years, and it went to 5 years. Now it's like 8 years, have to be reviewed. You can show up and speak up against those judges. They give you a minute sometimes, 2 minutes, depending on who's in power and whose friend it is. I show up at those. I'm one of the few people that do. And I'll speak out against 10 judges. I'll speak out against a judge who was involved in the case with the restaurant in Fredericksburg. I stood up and spoke out against his judge and gave his story. It doesn't have to be your story. If you know of it, that judge has to have someone standing up. They ignore everything you say. They're silent and they're complicit, and our legislature is a joke. The other thing is the Supreme Court has meetings. All of these meetings are public, and we get to go to them. We're not allowed to speak at them, but it makes them nervous having me there. So on Tuesday, I'll be in Richmond at the Supreme Court meeting where the judges will be there, and I'll speak to all of them, and I'll tell them Judicial PV has 3 million views against you guys. And they know Justice Donald Lemons had to step down, and they're feeling confident because they have good, I forget his name now, but he's in charge, and he's a black guy, and they feel like he can't really be touched because of that. I've had that said to me. Be careful what you say to him, he's black. I don't care what his color is. You know what? That means nothing to me. He owes me the same respect. I was at the governor's summit. The governor didn't show up. It was about rural America. $1.8 billion has been given to Virginia for broadband for the rural areas. 1.8 million. And no minorities and no women-owned businesses have access to that money. I asked her about that. They also talked about, I know around here there are several farms, people having issues financially holding on to the farms. There is a lot of money and there are a lot of trusts that are out there. And Amy is aware of them now. I'm aware of some of them. She kind of understood it a little better than I did. So we need to get hold of those people before they put their properties on the market and figure a way to do a land trust that ensures it doesn't go to China. Smithfield Farms apparently is on the market. China doesn't like the way we do business in America. They're not making as much money. So I probably used up more of my time than I should have, but I just want to read one thing. In all whistleblower conferences I've been to, they've read this, and I think it is important. How did it happen? It happened over time. One right was taken away, then another right was taken away, then another. We all stayed silent, thinking that was it. We would be able to continue life with freedom and liberty. Then Mike went missing. No one really knew what happened to Mike, and everyone looked the other way when they saw his family, embarrassed and not wanting to admit to what was happening. Ignored them, believing it couldn't happen to me. Then Tom and John went missing. Now everyone is nervous and not sure what is happening. Then you have to be in your home by dark. Your rights, all your rights have now been taken away from you, and they are coming after you. Why? Because you and everyone else stayed silent and didn't fight back at the government for our American-born rights. You can't have a government with integrity when you have a corrupt judicial system. America has a corrupt judicial system. What are you going to do to help change that? Because you can be the next American to disappear. So, does anyone have any questions for me? Or
Yeah, do you represent yourself with all these cases?
I do.
You do? So
I do.
You're probably more schooled than the lawyers are. So that was
yeah.
expensive.
She is more school.
I am, but you know, because of the way they look at pro se litigants, they create this false narrative. And that's when I finally am able to articulate it that way. And so what I'm now doing is the new case I'm filing this week is it's going to state very clearly about the false narrative that they've created, how they've ignored the evidence, and show the orders that they've used and the corruption of the judges. So it's a lot of work because you have to be able to show, like years ago, all the different judges and everything like that. And I've kept things pretty organized, but they go on to my USBs and they take everything off of them. They change the dates on things so that you can't get into them any longer. It was so I did a 4 year with I do 4 years with the FBI. When I can catch the IP address that's in my email, like the last one was in Texas outside of Dallas where the FBI is. This morning when I tried to get something I wanted to print out for today, they said, well, you're signing in Baltimore. Well, I live in the city of Alexandria. That's an hour away from me. Baltimore is where they have the another Department of Justice and FBI office. So it's kind of like you can put it together, and then what I do is I send in a FOIA for what they have on me. They just had me taken off of LinkedIn, where I had over 87,000 views on some of my posts.
So with the fact that you aren't in the lawyer class,
Yeah.
that's almost a blackball to these lawyers and judges that,
Perfect.
who are you?
Right.
Right?
Correct.
So that's something you have to almost overcome every time you come before us.
Well, actually, most of them in Virginia and DC federal, they all know who I am. Yeah. And being an ADA advocate, I've also gone into some of the J6 cases, and I have to tell you, this is the saddest thing. They're not allowed to use the First Amendment, just as Donald Trump isn't allowed to use the First Amendment in his case. The Chief Judge Burrell Howe, and now it's Bosberg, they came up with a plan on how every case was supposed to be. And they told the lawyers, you either do this or you lose your license. And they do it right in the open. And so as an ADA advocate, I went in there on this one guy's, and I did a letter to the judge and a mandamus up to the Supreme Court of the United States, asking for a master or a service master to review them. So now, you know, you may be thinking, well, maybe I could help her a little bit. We have over 1,000 cases. I need them up on Judicialpedia, and I need a form filled out about them, each case, because we need to file. I have enough evidence now, after sitting through that case, sitting for a few minutes through another one, and getting an order for one that states these trials only get 4 days. So they have colluded in the back. All of these trials have been done with a direct knowledge of the judges. And the other thing these judges do for their discretion, well, this judge ruled like this. Well, you know what? When a judge walks into a courtroom, he's supposed to be blind. This whole thing of case law is bullshit. We have the law. We don't need the case law. We don't need the law that somebody paid a judge off. But I do have a couple pretty powerful people who, if we can put together a good enough complaint, I called the Judiciary, Jim Jordan's office. Oh, well, yeah, they're not really happening, but we're not doing anything about it. Well, you know what? We've got to get them to do something about it, because that's a false narrative about each one of us, and what happened to them can happen to you. Don't think for 1 minute what happened to me can't happen to you. Every time I walk into a courthouse, I know the judge's main goal. In fact, in Orange, Virginia, the judge said to me, if I had my way about it, I would sanction you for $50,000. I would make it time certain, I'd call it contempt, and I'd throw you in jail forever. That's a judge who's being paid in Virginia by all of us for standing up for my rights. So we have to make a decision on what we're going to do, because it's not going to get better. And just Donald Trump getting elected or a new Republican getting elected, that's not going to make the change. We, the people, have to. Yeah.
Which case was that the judge said that?
It was, I had sued Judge James Clark, I believe, in that case. And or no, I'd sued the court, the clerk, or the commissioner, and it's Gary Lonergan's case. Me against Gary Lonergan, and Saheed, another person he had harmed. I was granted a jury trial against James Comey, Bill Barr, and and McCabe. And I had filed it in Orange. Department of Justice came in and moved it to Charlottesville. I got granted a jury trial. Department of Justice couldn't believe it. Started having all these conversations, wouldn't work with me or anything like that. And then this judge who said this to me was good friends with him. He was from Charlottesville. The next thing you know, I'm getting a letter from him stating, I don't get my jury trial. It's been dismissed. I can show you every finger of everybody here, of the judges. the different judges. And I don't only look for my cases. I can tell you about several other cases as well. But we'd be here forever. So, any other? Yes.
Can you just give us the specific names of 3 or 4 judges, the top ones, that definitely need to be removed so we can pray specifically for their removal?
Oh, wow. I would pray, I think that Judge Bosberg, who's the chief judge in D.C. Now, the D.C. federal court is a unique court because that court is the civil rights court for the United States of America. Anywhere in the United States of America can file a case of civil rights. All those judges. I would do Chief Burl Howell as well. She's the one, I believe, who created this game, and I would do Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland was head of the appeals court, and they wanted to put him on the Supreme Court, and I went to every senator's office and gave them a letter about him. And I don't know that it did it, but I know it did something. The Merrick Garland let the chief judge prior to Burl Howell, Richard Roberts, ignored the fact he had raped a 16-year-old. This girl for 30 years went after this guy, this judge. Finally, they retired him. He's making more money now than he did as a judge, and we are paying for it, and he raped a 16-year-old. And Merrick Garland, Judge Burl Howell, and Judge Bosberg all covered it up out of that court. So we have to make the decision how much of this we're going to allow. That case is on Judicialpedia as well. We've got to figure a way to hold our judges accountable because they're just covering up for them right and left. But I think those 3, because those 3 are the ones that are making the decision on how the J6ers are being treated. And I think that's something we should all really pray about regularly for those people. Because they're illegally going to jail forever. They haven't been told they have the rights to habeas corpuses. They haven't been told to do writs to the higher court to have the investigation. They're getting barely any legal advice that is any good because the lawyers are petrified of losing their licenses and the judges are controlling them. That's not a judge's job. A judge is supposed to go in there and on their own, on the law, not on case law, make these decisions. And they're not doing that. So, so any help anyone can do. For Judicialpedia, you would sign in with your email. If you don't want to use your own email, I can create an email even and put some of these cases up there or any cases you know of, even a parking ticket. Because if a judge will misbehave with a parking ticket, he'll misbehave with everything else. So, and this is a God thing. Everything I'm doing, everything I know, God wakes me at 3 a.m. and says, okay, now's the time to write the papers. And then I'll take a nap around 8 a.m. I'll wake up at 9, and I'll be like, I did that? And I know I didn't do it. I know God did it through me. So I could also use y'all's prayers. So we just need to figure out what's available to us. We need to fight this false narrative as to who we are and ensure that we're treated with the respect that we deserve. And just remember to be kind, even when people don't agree with you. Hand them a napkin, carry a napkin with you. Ask them to write 5 reasons down you should vote for their person. Listen to them why they want you to vote. They won't be able to tell you. They won't be able to write down 5 reasons you should vote for their person. But you can write down 5 reasons. Always be able to give 5 reasons as to why you're voting the way you are. So, just a thought. So David and Goliath fight, and we're in it together.